3 spine-chilling true stories of terrifying isolation in the haunted depths of the woods. In a suburb of Ohio, life should have been normal. But in the fading neighborhood where the Johnsons, Rodriguez family, and Petersons live, something sinister stirs in the shadows of the old forest at the end of the street. It looms like a foreboding figure, whispering secrets that curdle the soul. Strange, unnerving sounds seep from the depths, rustling branches, echoing screams, and the chilling sensation of being watched. It creeps into their dreams and leaves them gasping to wake up, feeling the icy fingers of dread tight around their throats. For the Johnsons, the weight of bills hangs like a heavy fog. They try to put on brave faces, but the anxiety festers beneath their skin, leaving them brittle, restless. The Rodriguez family, fresh into this neighborhood, are riddled with their past, quiet, desperate to belong, all while the anxiety in their hearts churns with fears long hidden. Then there are the Petersons, the ones who seem too eager to welcome the new families with open arms. A little too eager, making the Johnsons feel uneasy. That forest looms. If only it were just trees and wildlife, if only they could ignore those shadows creeping across their homes at dusk. Every night, when the world is sliding into sleep, something stirs in those woods, scratching at the walls of reality and sanity. But when they share their fears with the police, they are dismissed with simple chuckles and assurances of overactive imaginations. The laughter echoes hollow in their hearts, deepening the cracks of trust that form among neighbors who used to smile in passing. One particularly haunting night, young Billy Johnson can't take it anymore. Trapped by the suffocating weight of his own home, he sneaks into the woods. He hopes to find something beyond the silence that suffocates him, maybe even adventure. But the chill in the air soon turns to ice in his veins as he stumbles upon something horrifying: a series of faded posters clinging to trees, faces frozen in time, marked with the desperate pleas of families long torn apart by a darkness they can't comprehend. Panic seizes him, and he is suddenly aware of the unsettling sound surrounding him, ripped from the realm of nightmares. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Billy races back, heart pounding, eyes wide like saucers as he bursts into his house. He gasps out what he saw, the weight of the truth saturating the air. Fear grips the Johnsons, and soon all families find themselves drawn together by invisible chains of fear and urgency. Together, they devise a plan to confront whatever lurks in the darkness, battling every instinct that whispers for them to run away. One night, they venture into the woods, tension looming like fog. Each step leaves them further ensnared in its clutches, and they hear the deep, gnarled voices calling from the woods' heart, a siren call tied to local legends about something that feeds off despair. The air grows thick and heavy, whispering secrets they weren't meant to hear. As dawn breaks, each family returns home, health shaken but minds racing with possibilities. But the woods don't forget. What if getting lost was never an accident? What if something horrifying and ancient still waited, patiently, just beyond the tree line, ready to strike again? The following nights were marked by a restless tension that enveloped the Johnsons, the Rodriguez family, and the Petersons. Each creak of floorboards felt amplified, each gust of wind sent chills through their bones. They discussed the horrors Billy had unearthed, the faded faces of the missing children, their lively laughter now silenced, replaced by the void those posters depicted. The weight of despair thickened the air, and soon, they shared not just fear but an unspoken acknowledgement that they had become prey to something that thrived in the darkness. Determined, they decided to investigate again, but this time, they would not go alone. There was safety in numbers. Their resolve solidified, they gathered flashlights and a plan, whispering late into the night, their words barely hanging in the overwhelming silence that surrounded them. Under the watchful gaze of a full moon, they ventured into the woods once more. Shadows danced maliciously around them as they moved forward. The light from their flashlights carved out a small sanctuary against the oppressive darkness, yet that very darkness seemed to swell and pulse, hungry for their fear. "Did you hear that?" whispered Linda Rodriguez suddenly, halting the group's forward march. The air hung thick with anticipation, every heartbeat echoing. The faint sound of laughter drifted through the trees, a sweet sound twisted grotesquely with an undercurrent of malice. It was a child's laughter, high-pitched, almost innocent, yet unanchored and far too distant. Just as they exchanged uneasy glances, the laughter morphed into a cacophony of screams, urgent, bone-chilling, as if thousands were pleading for release from a silent torment. "Keep moving," Tim Peterson urged through gritted teeth, picking up the pace. Each footfall felt like an insult to the air around them, daring whatever stalked them to reveal itself. They pressed deeper into the woods, instinct telling them that retreat was not an option. As they navigated through the density of trees, they stumbled upon a clearing. The tall grass swayed slightly in a non-existent wind, and there, scattered on the ground, lay remnants, broken toys, scattered pages of children's drawing, and more posters, this time tattered and smeared with what looked like old, dark stains. Each image captured a moment frozen in a time when laughter erupted in these very woods. Now, it felt like a graveyard of innocence. "They were here," Billy's voice trembled, a fragile whisper as his tiny frame recoiled in horror. Before anyone could respond, the earth beneath their feet trembled softly. A low growl emanated from the darkness, a reminder that they were intruders. The trees creaked, and the shadows morphed into shapes, writhing and stretching. Panic gripped them like a vice, forcing them to remember that their gathering intent had drawn attention. They were being watched. A terrifying realization seeped into their minds: whatever hunted them was not merely a forest legend, it was real, and its hunger was undeniable. Adrenaline surged as they turned to escape the clearing, the laughter and screams now a deafening chorus in their ears. It was an echo that followed them, binding them tighter in fear. They sprinted, branches clawing at their clothes, roots tangling around their feet, as the darkness itself seemed intent on holding them back, but in their chaotic flight, they missed one peculiar sight. Just off to the left, unnoticeable amidst the shadows, stood a single tree. This tree was unlike any other they had encountered. It was larger, its bark smooth and eerily inviting, blood-red markings running like veins along its trunk. In that moment, just a heartbeat above their pounding hearts, a faint whisper reached their ears: "Come and play." The group stopped, an invisible force pulling them toward it, freezing their legs in place. The sense of wrongness enveloped them, but curiosity gnawed at the edges of their fear. How could they resist? And with that, the woods held its breath, poised on the brink of revelation or annihilation. What would happen if they stepped closer? What lay at the heart of the forest's sinister embrace? Would they find answers or a deeper abyss? The haunting atmosphere thickened with palpable dread as the decision loomed before them. Stay or step forward. The dark heart of the forest drummed wildly, urging them to explore what they had both feared and desired. As a sense of impending doom sharpened their senses, they realized that the woods would not release them easily. Their next move could either lead them towards the truth or bury them deeper into shadows they may never escape. The stillness shattered like glass as they stood transfixed, the whisper curling around their senses. "Come and play." The words twisted through the trees, slithering into their ears, drawing them closer. "Is this a joke?" Billy's voice broke through the air, laced with both fear and skepticism. Sweat trickled down Tim's back, each drop a harbinger of the dread that crashed down upon them. "Let us go." Linda finally broke the spell, her voice harsh and cracked. She yanked Billy's arm, but he stood stubbornly, his wide eyes glued to the tree. "No, wait. I want to see," he murmured, an uncharacteristic glimmer of bravery sparking in the depths of his fear. The tree beckoned to him like a living thing, its smooth bark gleaming under the moonlight, blood-red lines pulsing softly as though alive. The others hesitated, their hearts racing against the aching silence that surrounded them. "Billy, come on. This place is wrong." Tim's voice hung thick with panic, but the boy seemed entranced, stepping forward, inch by agonizing inch. The laughter erupted once more, rising to an unbearable pitch. It rung from their very cores, a symphony of lost childhood that turned the night air stagnant. One by one, the adults felt it an almost magnetic pull. Just within reach, they could sense something deeper, a promise of connection or perhaps a question of allegiance. Tim gritted his teeth, summoning resolve. We can't leave him. We need to pull him back. He surged forward, bolstered by desperation, lunging toward Billy's small frame. No! Linda screamed, her voice sharp as a shard of glass, but it was too late. As Tim's fingers clasped around Billy's wrist, the ground trembled violently beneath them, sending shockwaves up their legs. The whispers swelled, rising into a cacophony that drowned out all reason. Trees swayed dangerously, their branches twisting like clawed hands reaching for the sky. An image flashed in Billy's eyes: children running, playing, laughter bursting forth like fireworks in the twilight. But their faces were not smiling. No, their smiles twisted, shadows creeping up their skin as they turned to look at him. The adults screamed as the laughter morphed into desperate wails, the shadows creeping longer and darker, swirling around their feet. Linda felt a cold breeze snake up her spine, fingers trailing like icy tendrils. Their flashlights flickered, dying under the weight of the nightmare encroaching upon them. And then, suddenly, the noise stopped. A deafening silence fell around them, thick and suffocating. Tim felt Billy tremble against him, his small body trembling as if suddenly becoming aware of the terror they had conjured. Billy, we need to go. Now. His voice was a whisper, but the stranglehold of the fear in his throat made it sound more urgent. But Billy's eyes were locked onto the tree, as if it were speaking only to him. They're waiting, he said, as if in a trance. At that moment, before they could react, the ground beneath the tree split open, oozing an inky darkness that pulled at the grass like fingers of death. The scent of decay wafted into their nostrils, rancid and bitter, as if the very roots held the secrets of every lost child. Run! Linda shouted, an order facilitated by terror. They turned, urgency fueling their every movement as they barreled into the night, branches ripping at their skin, their screams echoing against the suffocating silence. Behind them, the darkness rose, tall and insatiable, chasing them like a predator with a taste for fear. As they fled, the tree loomed in their rear view, the blood-red markings now glowing ominously. In its branches, dozens of pale faces appeared, children's faces lost and crying, their mouths wide open in eternal screams. The path turned, and without thinking, they took the wrong direction. Where are we? Billy whimpered, and for the first time, he sounded like a child again, lost in the night. They stumbled deeper into the woods, the weight of reality weighing heavily on them. Shadows darted in their peripheral vision, mocking their every move, leading them further into the abyss. A moment of desperation seized Tim. We need to get out of here. We can't let it win. But as they raced forward, another horrifying realization struck. They had unknowingly crossed into an area they hadn't seen before, the forest shifting and morphing around them as if the landscape itself were alive, warping to trap them. Darkness wouldn't let them leave that easily. As the realization sank in and despair clutched at their throats, a single thought ignited panic. What if the forest was not just a backdrop to their terror, but the very heart of it? They pressed on, hearts pounding, fear surging as they forged ahead into unknown horrors. But what waited on the path before them, among the trees, was a secret that would unravel everything they thought they knew. And with that overwhelming thought, the darkness thickened, wrapping around them like a shroud, whispering secrets they were too afraid to hear. What awaited them in the heart of the trees? Would they find a way out, or would the woods keep their souls forever? The air felt alive, crackling with a dark electricity as Tim raced through the underbrush, dragging Billy with him. Every footfall brought a chilling finality, the ground seeming to pulse beneath their weight. Linda fell behind, her breath coming in ragged gasps. A voice inside her echoed, "Keep running. Don't look back." But she couldn't help it. The ghastly tree loomed larger in their minds, its bark twisting, the blood-red lines thrumming as though alive. An oppressive heaviness swallowed the night, stifling their screams. Shadows whipped around them, darting like needles, relentless in their pursuit. Where's the way out? Linda's voice quivered, lost in panic. Just keep going. Tim barked, guilt and fear churned in his gut like a storm. And then, suddenly, they stumbled into a clearing. The moon cast a sickly glow, illuminating a warped circle of trees, each one more grotesque than the last, twisted and gnarled. The hollow in the center bobbed with an unearthly light, drawing them in like moths to a flame. Do you see that? Billy uttered, his voice barely a whisper. Stay close. Tim shouted, clutching Billy's hand tighter. Linda felt a jolt of fear. What if it's a trap? Then we'll deal with it. Tim replied, his resolve hardening. They edged toward the light, an iridescent shimmer that hinted at something more, something lost. An echo of laughter wafted through the air, soft and inviting. The ringing laughter that had haunted them before was now a mocking refrain. Too good to be true, Tim muttered, eyes darting. It has to be a trick. But the light pulsed gently, sighing as if beckoning them closer. The trees surrounding them seemed to lean in, eager to listen. What if we just... Billy began, but Tim grabbed him, fear igniting between them. No. They're waiting for us. He pulled Billy back just as the laughter turned to screams, a chorus that pierced through the silence, reverberating off the trees. Linda gasped, her heart sinking further with every chilling wail. The ground rumbled once more. Panic surged as the trees writhed, the roots thickening like grasping hands. They needed a plan, a chance to escape the jaws of this living nightmare. But beneath their feet, another whisper began to weave its way through the chaos. Join us. It slithered around them, wrapping around Tim and Billy's ankles, tugging insistently as if the earth itself were trying to pull them into its depths. Fight it. Linda screamed, feeling the icy tendrils creeping closer, colder than the night air. Tim's mind raced. They had to find something, anything, to cut through this haze of despair. What was it that Mom said? He murmured, the words lost on the wind as the ground pulsed again, throwing them off balance. I don't remember. Billy cried out, tears streaming down his face, desperation flooding his voice. The laughter returned, but now it was more of a snicker, a derisive echo that hung heavily, eroding their hope. Tim felt bile rise in his throat, a primal fear clawing at his very existence, demanding he surrender to the darker whisper. But just then, Linda noticed something at the edge of the clearing, a shimmer, small and glinting in the moonlight. Over there. She pointed, her instincts kicking in. It could be a way out, or nothing. Tim snapped, adrenaline fueling him. We have to try. As they surged forward, the air thickened, the sinister laughter fading into a low chant, a string of promises extending from the woods. Join us. In that moment, the glow brightened, casting an evil eye on them. A figure emerged from the shimmer, eyes wide and hollow, mouth frozen in a silent scream, one of the lost children from the tree. Help us, the voice pleaded, a strange mix of desperation and terror that churned in Tim's gut, but the shadows thickened, and something darker lurched underfoot. With every heartbeat, they felt the malevolence of the forest closing in. They had chosen their path, but what would they find at the end? The urgency pressed down like a weight, and together, they lunged into the light, into the unknown, and the darkness crumbled behind them. What lay ahead? Would they discover the truth behind the darkness, or was it merely the beginning of a nightmare beyond their reckoning? The light enveloped them, pulling them in like a tidal wave. When they tumbled out on the other side, the air shifted, palpable and thick. This was no ordinary place. The clearing they'd left behind was nothing compared to the realm that expanded before them. The ground sparkled like shattered glass underfoot, glittering fragments scattered amidst the foliage. A faint glow pulsated in the distance, emanating from a small pond, its surface smooth as a mirror. Strange figures danced in the reflection, silhouettes that twisted and writhed without bodies, mocking their very existence. What the hell is this place? Billy muttered, the terror evident in his wide eyes. I don't know, Linda whispered, her voice trembling. She felt as though the very air was charged. Every breath was a struggle, as if the atmosphere itself were thickening around them. Tim clenched his fists. We can't stay here. We need to move. But the deeper they ventured, the more uneasy the landscape became. The trees on the periphery leaned in, limbs drooping like skeletal fingers yearning for warmth, their bark split in twisted patterns that resembled anguished faces. The chilling sounds of distant cries echoed through the trunks, bearing a distant but relatable sorrow. As they neared the pond, their surroundings dimmed further, shadows consuming every glimmer of hope. We need something to fight back, Tim said, desperation edging his voice. What do we fight? Linda shot back, a hint of panic creeping in. This place it's alive. It wants us to join it. The laughter returned, echoing from every direction. It was a deafening cacophony that penetrated their minds, making it impossible to think. Each note a taunt, each cackle a reminder of the children lost in the woods. Tim squeezed Billy's hand tighter, his heart hammering as layers of dread piled upon him. Suddenly, from the edge of the pond, shapes began to emerge. More children, their forms flickering like candle flames, too distorted to recognize as anything but nightmares. They walked on the surface of the water, weightless yet exuding a palpable sorrow. Why do you resist? They chanted in unison. Join us, Tim's mind flooded with fear, the gravity of the moment pressing him down. We can't give in. He yelled, though his voice wavered. One of the figures stepped forward, a girl with matted hair and hollow cheeks. Her eyes burned with desperation as she reached out, as if trying to grasp onto the last thread of hope. Please, she pleaded. It's easier here. You won't feel pain. Join us. Linda stepped back, breath quickening. What if we really could? A small part of her, a frightened, lost part, was tempted. It would all stop. No more running, no more pain. No. Tim shouted, igniting a spark of conviction. You're not real. You were tricked. We won TB. With those words, the pond burbled violently, waves crashing against the shore as if angered by their defiance. The whispers rose louder, overwhelming their senses. Join us echoed relentlessly until it reached a fever pitch. Then came an eruption, a blast of cold air forcefully whipping through them, like a slap. The otherworldly girls and boys screamed, their haunting eyes widening with rage, shadows erupting around them. Panic surged as the ground beneath them quaked violently. They needed to run. But the decision loomed large. Would leaving the pond mean abandoning the hope of escape? Or was it merely trading one nightmare for another? Tim grabbed the hands of both Linda and Billy, pulling them back toward the light's edge. This way. We have to trust each other no matter what. But as they stumbled through the dense brush, tears and anger battling against resignation, the figures stretched out their hands, fingers dwindling in the air, pleading one last time. As the whispers faded, the tranquility came crashing home. They made it to the other side, but the weight of that decision settled heavy in the air. What awaited them now? What horrors lurked beyond the exit of this forsaken realm? Would they find freedom or merely a different kind of torment? The forest, dark and deceptive, held all the answers, but was it willing to reveal them? As they emerged from the other side, the sudden brightness felt blinding. They stumbled onto a path that was still steeped in shadows, each step resonating like a heartbeat in their chests. The forest was dim and foreboding, but the whispers had faded, leaving an eerie silence that pressed in around them like a heavy fog. What just happened? Billy gasped, looking over his shoulder as if expecting the figures to follow. Are they gone? Maybe for now, Tim said, trying to steady his voice, but the uncertainty twisted in his gut. He brushed his hand through his hair, a futile gesture to wipe away the lingering horror. But we can't let our guard down. Linda didn't speak. Her mind raced like a trapped animal. The girl's pleading eyes haunted her. What if they were right? What if it really was easier on the other side? They continued down the path, each footfall cautious as the dense trees framed them in. The branches tangled above, reaching toward the sky like gnarled fingers. It was just another twisted corner of the forest. Suddenly, a loud crack shattered the silence. The sound echoed through the air, jolting them to a halt. What was that? Billy whispered, eyes scanning their surroundings wildly. I don't know, Tim replied, voice tight. Stay close. The path began to twist and turn, leading them deeper into the woods where the shadows grew longer and more sinister. The trees whispered secrets in the breeze, and Linda could have sworn she heard her name among them. Shivers ran down her spine as her heart raced. Guys, we should hurry. I don't like this place. Agreed, Tim said. We need to find a way out of here. He turned to look at the trail ahead, but it seemed to drift further into darkness, the light behind them fading away like a lost memory. As they pressed on, they stumbled upon a clearing, an unexpected respite. A broken-down shack stood in its center, wood splintered and raw, like a long-forgotten memory scratching at the edges of their consciousness. Let's check it out, Tim said, hope flickering in his voice. What if it's a trap? Billy asked nervously, glancing back to the shadows of the trees. Or a way to survive, Linda added, the thought of refuge enticing yet terrifying. We can't just stand here. They approached the shack cautiously. The door hung ajar, creaking in the wind like a spine-wrenching groan. Billy stepped forward, nudging it open with a trembling hand. The darkness inside swallowed the light, revealing only a void. It's empty, he whispered, or was it? A slow dribble of water echoed from within, not raindrops but something closer, something human. They exchanged fearful glances before stepping inside. The air was suffocating, thick with the scent of decay. In a corner, something shifted. A figure hunched over, snarling softly, shadows flickering across its face. Help me, it rasped, the sound like nails on a chalkboard. Tim stepped back, dread pooling in his stomach. What are you? I was like you, I was lost, the figure gasped as if the mere act of speaking cost it life. They pulled together, straining to comprehend the horror unfolding before them. No! Billy cried out, backing up into Linda, who clutched his arm desperately. Help me! You must! It pleaded, but the eyes behind the shadows were wild, hungry, pleading not for salvation but for prey. The shack vibrated ominously as the wind howled outside. It knows we're here, Tim whispered, panic rising in his chest. The walls seemed to close in, they were no longer in control. Suddenly, the whispers returned, swirling like a cyclone in the air, echoing memories of the pond, the figures. Join us, help us, Tim clenched his teeth. No more. We have to get out. He dashed toward the door, pulling Billy and Linda after him. But the shadows around the shack quivered, reaching out. Just as they burst forth into the clearing, a sharp crack echoed once more, this time followed by an anguished scream resonating all around them. It was a name, not one of them. A name they didn't recognize but felt deep in their bones. Run! Tim shouted as the darkness rippled behind them, the shack becoming lost in the chaos they unleashed. As they fled through the trees, they wondered, what had they awakened? What lay waiting among the twisted branches? In the distance, a new sound emerged, laughter. A laughter that felt very much like their own. The laughter echoed in the air, a twisted mockery that wrapped around them like a fog. Tim's heart pounded against his ribs while they sprinted deeper into the forest. The wind howled, whipping through the trees, urging the shadows to chase them. Tim, where do we go? Billy gasped, struggling to keep up. Just keep running. Tim barked, desperation fueling his pace. Linda gripped Billy's arm, fear tightening her grip. They pushed through the thick underbrush, branches clawing at them like unseen hands, trying to pull them back. Then, the laughter sharpened, breaking through the din of rustling leaves and their ragged breaths. It divided into shrill bursts, echoing sinister playfulness. Help us! Don't leave us! The disembodied voices taunted, drawing the trio further into the dark embrace of the woods. Shut up! Tim shouted into the night, wanting to drown out the mocking sound. But it only grew louder, swelling like a crescendo of madness. They stumbled upon a second clearing, marked by ominous, flickering lights that danced like fireflies, but they were nothing more than ghostly orbs, gliding through the air. Each light pulsed, synchronizing with the cadence of their heartbeat, illuminating hollow trees whose bark gaped like open mouths. "What are those?" Linda whispered, her voice trembling. "Let us get away from here," Tim urged, his primal instincts screaming at him to flee. But they hesitated, drawn by the luminous orbs that beckoned them closer. Their glowing edges merged with darkness, creating an abyss that both attracted and repelled. Out of nowhere, a sharp cry pierced the night, a scream mingled with agony and hopelessness. It was human, raw. Linda's hands went cold with dread as another voice called from the depths, help me." They looked at each other, eyes wide. "We can't just leave someone," Billy protested, stepping toward the flickering lights. "No." Tim grabbed his shoulder. "We have to think. It's a trap." But the sounds continued to lure them, punctuated by the laughter weaving through the branches above, becoming an intrusive echo bouncing off the trees. Each voice twisted into a cacophony. Join us, it's easy." The orbs swayed hypnotically as if they held secrets they had no choice but to unveil. "Look." Linda's voice wavered. "If we could just get a little closer." "No," Tim said, fighting off the feel of being sucked into the spell. He grabbed both of their arms, pulling them back a step. Then came a sudden gust, ripping through the clearing. Leaves screamed in protest as the warmth of the lights turned icy. Panic surged through them like an electric pulse, pushing Tim forward. "We need to go now." They turned to flee, their feet pounding against the loamy ground, but the darkness seemed to shift. The trees closed in tighter, the shadows stretching, warping to obscure their path. Twisted limbs curled like claws, blocking their escape. "Tim!" "The trees!" Billy shouted, his voice nearly dissolving into a shriek. Branches snapped and shifted of their own accord, wrapping around their ankles like chains, pulling them closer. In a moment of chaotic flailing, Linda felt something brush against her back, a cold, clammy hand that sent shockwaves through her body. She screamed. The laughter intensified, a chorus of derision that spiraled through the night. The shadows darted closer, until all they could see was dark, and the ground beneath them felt alive, twitching and undulating. "Run!" Tim yelled again, his voice cracking with terror, as he yanked Linda and Billy free. They broke through, tumbling into another narrow path that forked in every direction, the laughter fading behind them but swallowing them further into unknown horrors. What if we never find our way back?" Billy stammered, face pale like a ghost. That unease twisted through them. Linda glanced back, her eyes wide. In the distance, flickering orbs began to coalesce again. But this time, they seemed different, greedy, hungry. They watched, bubbling with a sinister glee. "Stop! Look!" Tim pointed ahead. Standing at the end of the path was a figure, a silhouette. Drenched in darkness, arms stretched wide. "Welcome," it called, voice dripping with malice. "So glad you found us." Their breaths caught in their throats, realization dawning too late. And then, the laughter returned, echoing louder, drowning them in twisted joy. What other horrors awaited them in the depths of the woods? The figure loomed larger as they stepped back, the darkness around them pressed in like a vice. Tension coiled in Tim's gut like a snake ready to strike. "Run!" He shouted again, desperation clawing at his throat, but where could they go? Each path they glanced toward felt choked by shadows, like dark waters rising steadily around them. The figure remained, watching, waiting for them to falter, the sinister smile barely visible. Tim tugged Billy and Linda toward the right, every nerve in him warning against failure. This way. He hoped against hope that the darkness wouldn't swallow them whole. Billy stumbled, nearly falling, but Linda caught him, her eyes still locked onto the figure. "Forget it!" Billy gasped as the laughter echoed again, a grotesque melody. "We have to get out of here. It's a trap." It wants us to panic. Tim shouted, leading them deeper into the twisting maze of trees. The path narrowed, branches reached for them like skeletal hands. It was more than the voices now, it felt like the forest could breathe, could sense their fear, responding with a low, vibrating hum that thrummed beneath the soil. Each footfall felt louder, more clumsy, as they fled the figure behind. But still, the laughter pursued them, morphing into something like whispers, the echoes bending reality, making it hard to tell where it came from around them or within their own minds. "Tim, I think it's coming." Linda's voice quivered, her grip tightening on his arm. Billy grunted, struggling against the chaos of branches. Suddenly, the path opened up into yet another clearing, but this time, it was darker, still gloomier than anything they had encountered. Mists clung to the ground, wrapping around their ankles like the grasp of the forgotten. In the center stood what looked like an altar, stone and moss-covered, bulging with grotesque carvings of faces frozen in torment. "What is that?" Billy breathed, a mix of horror and fascination painted across his ashen features. I don't know," Tim stammered. Then Linda stepped forward, drawn inexplicably to the altar, curiosity igniting a dangerous spark. "It feels different," she whispered, her eyes glazing over as she approached. "No. Don't touch it." Tim yelled, panic rising in his throat. But it was too late. Linda's fingers brushed against the smooth stone, and the ground near the altar began to tremble. The shadows twisted violently, writhing like snakes unleashed. "Join us," the voices shouted, now 1,000 tortured souls in unison. The mist thickened, swirling into shapes, writhing figures with hollow eyes reaching out, wanting to pull Linda in. "Help!" she shouted, terror tearing through her as the ground beneath her threatened to split open. Her voice cracked like fragile glass, splintering Tim's heart. Tim lunged to grab her hand, pulling her back just as the mist threatened to encompass her completely. "Get away from there." He turned to see Billy's horrified expression, and knew they had only moments to decide. "Where do we go?" Billy cried, fear splintering his words. The lights flickered again in their peripheral vision, beckoning with all their sinister charm. "Why do you resist?" The altar seemed to whisper, the stone alive with malice. Something shifted in Tim's heart, a nagging thought. What if they weren't meant to escape? What if certain paths led to freedom, while others were mere dead ends leading straight into the clutches of this nightmare? "Stay close," he yelled, pulling them away from the altar. They stumbled backward, but the ground quaked again, the laughter reached a deafening pitch. Suddenly, the trees seemed to close in even tighter, branches snapping in furious response to their defiance. Shadows danced, taking form, as if mischief and rage intertwined. "Run!" Tim shouted again, knowing they had to take the risk. But with which way? As they turned to flee, the air thick with dread, one of the voices rose above the others. "Help me, you can't escape forever, will you roam our wilderness?" And just like that, a deafening roar erupted from the depths of the woods, shaking the ground beneath them and sending them sprawling to the dirt. Hearts racing, they scrambled to their feet, but everything felt wrong. Panic laced their movements as they stood there, caught between choices, an eternity of choices, but with every second ticking away, the shadows pressed in closer. "Which way?" Linda cried, looking between Tim and Billy as their world spun into chaos. The laughter crescendoed, and from the darkness came another chilling welcome. "There's no way out, children, come join us, it's so cozy here, so comfortable." And ahead, a pathway loomed with a pulsing glow, beckoning them closer, its intent gleaming with promise or something far worse. What unseen horrors lay ahead in the alluring light? Tim's heart pounded in his ears, drowning out the shrieks of laughter spiraling around them. The glow of the path seemed to pulse, a deceptive heartbeat in the dark, compelling them like moths to a flame. He glanced at Linda, her expression caught between fear and fascination, then shot a desperate look at Billy. "Is it safe?" Billy's eyes darted nervously toward the beckoning light. "I don't know. But we have to decide now." Tim urged, the corners of his vision crawling with shadows. The mist swirled tighter around them, twisting in the air, thickening like smoke billowing from a fire. Without another word, they hesitated at the edge of the path, fear warping their thoughts. Was the glow salvation or a trap? Tim instinctively took a step forward. If that thing gets us, we won't have time to think. All right, on three. Billy's voice shook, and Linda nodded, her resolve flickering. 1, 2, 3. They dashed forward, rushing into the glow, but as they crossed the threshold, the light dimmed. Just as before, tendrils of darkness surged around them, pulling at their limbs like angry hands reaching from the abyss. Tim felt the cold grasp of panic rise. Keep moving. He shouted, his breath coming like hot steam in the chill. The path twisted and turned, a snaking channel that led deeper away from the clearing. They stumbled forward, heart racing until the ground beneath them felt solid once more. The glowing source pulsed like an angry heart, illuminating grotesque faces carved into the trees, watching them with hollow eyes. Did you see that? Linda gasped, backing away until her heels caught the roots jutting from the earth. What? Tim spun to look, but nothing was there, only the grim remains of those ancient carvings. Those faces, they were whispering. It's just your imagination. Billy yelled, unable to hide his own rising terror. Just then, a loud crack echoed behind them. The laughter reverberated through the trees, mocking their every breath, and Tim realized their recent choice was an error. Go! He yelled, pulling Linda and Billy forward as the malice twisted back. Hungry for them, they picked up speed, the darkness behind them seemed to swell, a living creature gnashing its teeth with hunger. Each turn brought more trees, more shadows. The light at their feet pulsed ever slower, flickering barely above a dying ember. Tim looked back once more, dread in his gut. The voice echoed, a seductive whisper dipped in honey, "Come closer, you can't fight it forever, no." Tim shouted, the anger boiling up as they stumbled on, hearts thudding wildly with each step. Light and darkness battled in his mind, the pulsing glow seeming further away with every heartbeat. Then, all at once, the path opened up, an enormous chasm before them. A swirling void shrouded in fog yawned wide, inviting yet terrifying. "We can't go that way." Linda screamed, panic straining her voice. "We don't have a choice." Tim yelled back, wrestling with the instinct to flee but knowing the darkness pursued them with intent. "Look!" Billy pointed down at the ground. Symbols glowed faintly, pulsing in time with the pathway beyond. Words etched into the dirt, "Fear binds, power takes life." Lost in shadow, Tim felt an icy chill race up his spine. Could this be the answer? Were they meant to confront their fears? Or was this another ploy? "I don't think we can stay here," Linda cried, the ground trembling beneath their feet. "Then we choose." Tim shouted, thrusting out his arm toward the chasm, desperation surging through him. "We face it together." With synchronized breath, they stepped toward the void, an agonizing choice weighing on their hearts. Would they plunge into the unknown, or become prisoners to the shadows that hunted them? The laughter crescendoed again, twisting in their ears, merging with deafening roars. "Choose your fate, children. Choose your destiny." And just like that, the very ground began to rumble and crack, echoing the laughter now amplified into a cacophony of terror, as the shadows lunged forth, ravenous and enveloping, what awaited them in the void. Would they confront the darkness, or succumb to its twisted embrace? Tim felt the ground shake beneath his feet as the laughter erupted into a cacophony of terror, the shadows swirling like a frenzied storm. Panic surged through him. Each heartbeat screamed at him to run, but he knew fleeing wasn't the answer. They stood at the precipice, an abyss yawning wide with unknown horrors beneath. Together. He shouted, the word a lifeline that bound them. With a nod of shared determination, he took a step forward. The darkness surged, but Tim dug deep, heart racing, legs strengthening with resolve. "We can't be afraid," he called out, urging Linda and Billy to follow. They stepped into the swirling void, its cold breath wrapping around them like a vice. As they plunged into the darkness, a burst of light shattered the shadows, illuminating everything around them. the laughter turned to cries of confusion, fading into desperate whispers as they landed softly on an expanse of shimmering grass. The trio burst through the other side breathless and stunned. Gone were the malevolent trees, the haunting echoes of lost children. Before them stretched a grassy field, expansive and luminescent, the very air humming with warmth and light. "Are we free?" Billy whispered, wide-eyed with disbelief. "I think so." Tim breathed heavily, scanning the horizon. Gone were the trees that loomed over them like dark sentinels, replaced by sunlight spilling across the verdant landscape. But as they sank into the calm moment, the darkness trailed behind them a creeping shadow just out of reach, yet, something felt odd. The laughter still danced in the corners of their minds, a lingering echo that twisted their hearts. Tim felt cold tendrils of fear coil around him, dancing at the edges, whispering doubts. "You cannot escape what you've faced." "Maybe we need to face it, once and for all," Linda suggested, voice steady though her eyes trembled. "Remember the choices we made? It's our stories that create our path. We have to confront it." Tim nodded, understanding. They couldn't just outrun their fears. They had to confront the darkness that had entwined their lives, unravel it strand by strand. "Together," he affirmed. "Let us do this." Walking shoulder to shoulder, they faced the creeping shadow from which they had escaped. It writhed, folding in on itself, forms emerging faces from their past, laughter twisting into despair. "You think you've escaped?" it hissed, voices overlapping in furious whispers. "Come back to play. We're waiting." "No." Tim shouted, each word filled with the passion of a child refusing to let go of dreams. "We're not afraid." With that, they stepped forward, unyielding. Memories swelled, the laughter of lost children, their eyes wide with joy, not despair. A warmth spread through them, strengthening their resolve. They reached into their pockets, drawing forth remnants of their memories, pictures of family, hopes, and laughter, a spark that could light even the darkest corners of the soul. One by one, they held their memories up against the shadows. "You have no hold over us," Billy cried, courage boiling within him. The shadows faltered, retreating slightly, a flicker of fear evident in their forms. Tim stepped closer, determination surging. "You're just a part of us, but you're not all of us." As their memories intertwined in a brilliant swirl of light, the shadow screamed, a sound ripped with anger and loss. The light burst forth, a flood sweeping the darkness away, revealing the heart of the woods, the very place that had once thrived on fear, now exposed and shrunken. The figure of the ominous tree appeared before them, diminished, roots crumbling away, hollowed and frail. Beneath it lay the faded posters of the lost children, now luminous with hope and warmth. The whispers faded, replaced by a soft sigh, gratitude emanating from the remnants of those lost. As the last remnants of darkness dissolved into the light, Tim, Linda, and Billy stood, united in victory. They felt the weight lift from their chests, the feeling of despair finally breaking apart. "Did we do it?" Billy asked, hope glimmering in his eyes. "Yeah, I think we did," Tim said, a smile creeping across his lips. No shadows lingered now, only the light of past laughter and their newfound strength. Years later, they would look back at that night, on the cusp of childhood and everything lost. Their lives would flourish, built on memories shared in triumph over the darkness. And the woods, once eerie and suffocating, transformed. No longer a haunt of dread, they became a tapestry woven with stories, laughter echoing through the trees, forever shimmering in light. So under those old trees, Tim, Linda, and Billy forged new beginnings, their history's great tales told around bonfires, a reminder that even the deepest shadows can't extinguish the light of family and friendship. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, they walked on, the forest transformed behind them, at peace. Now, it's your turn. If you love this story and want more tales that keep you on the edge of your seat, you need to subscribe immediately. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. What do you think they faced? What is your interpretation? And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.